In a small, secluded town, nestled between ancient, towering forests, there lived a girl named Clara. The town was quaint and peaceful, with cobblestone streets and old-fashioned lanterns that lit up the night. However, the townspeople held one peculiar superstition: never answer a call after midnight. Clara was a curious and intelligent girl, always questioning the odd customs and old wives' tales that the townspeople adhered to. She had heard the stories about the midnight calls since she was a child, how they were harbingers of doom, how those who answered would vanish, never to be seen again. But Clara never believed in such nonsense. One late autumn night, Clara was up late studying for an exam. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows of her room, and the ancient oak trees cast long, twisted shadows across the floor. Midnight came and went, and Clara continued to study, her mind too focused to notice the time. Suddenly the phone rang. The sharp, jarring sound made Clara jump. She glanced at the clock, 12:17 a.m. Her heart skipped a beat. For a moment she hesitated, remembering the tales, but then she shook her head and laughed at her own foolishness. Picking up the phone, she answered, "Hello?" There was no response, just silence. Clara frowned and repeated, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Just as she was about to hang up, she heard it, a faint whisper, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably a voice. It was a child's voice, distant and echoing, as if carried by the wind. "Help me." Clara's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Help me, please," the voice repeated, growing fainter with each word. "Where are you? How can I help?" Clara's mind raced. Was this a prank? A cry for help? She needed to know. The line went dead. Clara sat there, clutching the phone, her heart pounding in her chest. She told herself it was just a prank, some kids fooling around. But deep down, a gnawing fear took root. What if the stories were true? Over the next few days, Clara couldn't shake the unease that had settled over her. She asked around, but no one had heard of any missing children or strange occurrences. Life in the town continued as usual, with the townspeople going about their daily routines. But then the dreams started. Each night, Clara dreamed of the forest. She wandered through the dark, tangled trees, the air thick with fog. She could hear whispers, the same child's voice calling out for help, leading her deeper into the woods. No matter how far she walked, she could never find the source of the voice. One evening, Clara decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight and a determination to uncover the truth, she ventured into the forest. The moon was full, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. The trees seemed to close in around her, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. As she walked, Clara noticed something strange. The deeper she went, the quieter the forest became. The usual sounds of nocturnal creatures were absent, replaced by an oppressive silence. Her footsteps echoed loudly, the crunch of leaves underfoot the only sound. Hours passed, or so it seemed. Clara couldn't tell how long she had been walking, but she felt an inexplicable pull, drawing her deeper into the heart of the forest. Finally, she came to a clearing, bathed in moonlight. In the center stood an old, decrepit house, its windows shattered and its walls covered in ivy. The house seemed to beckon her, and Clara, against her better judgment, stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and decay. She called out, but her voice was swallowed by the darkness. "Help me." The whisper was clearer now, coming from upstairs. Clara's heart raced as she climbed the creaking stairs. She followed the voice to a small, dimly lit room. Inside, she saw a figure, a little girl, no older than 7, with long, matted hair and eyes wide with fear. "Thank you for coming," the girl whispered. "You're the only one who can help me." Clara approached cautiously. "What happened to you?" "They took me," the girl said, her voice trembling. "They took me and others. We're trapped here." "Who took you?" Clara asked. But before the girl could answer, a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the light. The temperature dropped, and Clara felt a presence, something ancient and malevolent. "You shouldn't have come," the girl said, her voice now filled with dread. "They know you're here." Suddenly the door slammed shut. Clara turned, but the room was now pitch black. She could hear whispering, not just from the girl, but from many voices all around her. "Help us! Free us!" Clara felt a hand on her shoulder, but when she turned, there was no one there. Panic set in, and she stumbled back, searching for the door. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. "They're coming." Clara finally found the doorknob and wrenched the door open, fleeing down the stairs and out of the house. She ran through the forest, branches clawing at her clothes and skin, the whispers following her. When she finally broke through the tree line and reached her home, she collapsed on the front porch, gasping for breath. She looked back at the forest, now silent and still. The next morning, Clara recounted her experience to the townspeople. Most dismissed her story as a dream or a figment of her imagination, but a few old-timers nodded knowingly and warned her to stay away from the forest. That night, Clara received another call. "Thank you for trying," the child's voice said, "but they won't let us go." Clara shivered and hung up, her mind racing. She knew she had to do something. She couldn't just leave those children trapped. The following night, Clara gathered supplies and set out for the forest once more. This time, she was prepared. She had researched old legends and found that the house was once home to a coven of witches who had been executed for their dark practices. It was said that their spirits still lingered, trapping any who dared to enter. Armed with this knowledge, Clara ventured back into the forest. As she approached the clearing, she felt the same sense of dread, but she steeled herself and pressed on. Inside the house, the atmosphere was even more oppressive than before. The whispers were louder, the air colder. Clara made her way to the room where she had seen the girl. "Clara!" The voice was familiar, but now it was filled with urgency. "You have to break the curse." "How?" Clara asked, her voice steady despite her fear. "Find the book. Destroy it." Clara searched the room and found an old, leather-bound book hidden under the floorboards. The cover was inscribed with strange symbols, and the pages were filled with dark incantations. As Clara prepared to burn the book, the house shook violently. The spirits of the witches appeared, their faces twisted with rage. "Leave now or suffer our wrath," they hissed. Clara, her hands trembling, struck a match and set the book ablaze. The flames consumed the pages, and the witches screamed in agony, their forms dissipating into the air. The house began to crumble, and Clara fled, barely escaping as the structure collapsed behind her. The forest seemed to sigh in relief, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. Clara never received another midnight call. The townspeople noticed a change in the forest. It was as if a dark cloud had been lifted. The old superstitions faded, and life returned to normal. But Clara would never forget the voices of the trapped children or the terror of that haunted house. She knew that some legends held a grain of truth and that some mysteries were better left unsolved. And though she never spoke of it again, she always remembered the lesson she had learned. Some calls should never be answered. Lila had always been fascinated by the old Victorian house her grandparents lived in. It was a sprawling, creaky place filled with dusty antiques and hidden corners. But there was one place that had always been off-limits: the attic. Her grandparents had warned her never to go up there, saying it was dangerous and filled with old junk. One rainy afternoon, while her grandparents were napping, Lila's curiosity got the better of her. She climbed the narrow, winding stairs to the attic and pushed open the heavy wooden door. The attic was dimly lit by a single grimy window, casting long shadows over the cluttered space. Long-lost beauty. Unable to resist, Lila wiped away the grime with her sleeve and peered into the glass. At first, she saw only her reflection, slightly distorted by the age of the mirror. But then, she noticed something strange. The reflection behind her wasn't the cluttered attic. It was a grand ballroom, filled with elegantly dressed people dancing to hauntingly beautiful music. Mesmerized, Lila watched the scene unfold, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and fascination. She reached out to touch the mirror, and as her fingers brushed the glass, a cold hand shot out from the reflection, grabbing her wrist. Lila screamed, but no sound came out. The hand pulled her closer, and she felt herself being drawn into the mirror, the world around her fading into darkness. When Lila opened her eyes, she was standing in the ballroom she had seen in the mirror. The people around her continued to dance, their faces blank and lifeless. She tried to move, but her feet were rooted to the spot. Panic set in as she realized she was trapped. From the corner of her eye, Lila saw a figure approaching. It was a tall, shadowy man with hollow eyes and a sinister smile. He extended his hand to her, and though every instinct screamed at her to run, she found herself unable to resist. As she took his hand, the music grew louder, drowning out her thoughts. Thank you for watching. Have a good night of sleep and stay safe. Please consider subscribing. It is completely free.